Hey there nation, welcome to the show. We help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and now it's time for another edition of Warhammer the Golden Age. This is our series of Warhammer Fantasy Battle reports. This one is our battle report number 30. It is a 3,000 point battle that is fought between my friend Grom the Paunch with his Apocalypse Now army of the Orcs and Goblins versus yours truly with my House Laynell, the Silvery Host of Calidor of High Elves. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going out at 3,000 points this time around. We forgot to, we have been really busy this month and haven't really got a chance to get any games in back in June, so because of that we're coming back now with with a vengeance in the month of July so that we can get more of these battle reports for you guys out there. So to kind of kick off us coming back after taking about a month off due to some personal stuff, we're going to do a 3,000 point battle report for this one. So with that being said, I'm going to put on some background music. We'll run through the army list real quick. If you want to take a look at what we have, you can pause and peruse at your leisure. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, now it's time on deployment. As you can see, we're fighting on a 4x6 table. This time my buddy Grom the Paunch has taken the near side of the table. I'm deployed on the far side of the table. As you can see the way they're kind of lined up here, my buddy Grom the Paunch, he's Orcs and Goblins player, so not much really difficult tactics going on with this guy. All he needs to do is line up in a straight line and charge you as quickly as he possibly can. He does have a little bit of a jam-up situation where his Black Orcs are kind of stuck behind his Goblins. I'm not sure if that happened on accident or if he was part of his plan on using those Goblins as shields. I'm really not sure at that part. As you can see, I'm deployed on the far side of the board. Pretty much my idea is to charge in with the center, use my Lyrian Reavers to pull out his Fanatics and get those destroyed, flank with my Cavalry as well as my Dragons on the left and right flank, and then finish them off in the center with my blocks of infantry. So with that being said, let's go into the individual deployment zones. Alright, deployed on the left-hand flank, we have Rossum Laynell as well as Pyrite. That's my Dragon Mage of Calidor. He's got a Reaver Bow, he's got some pretty good spells, Flaming sort of Ruin, as well as Fireballs. I'm using him to just kind of like chaff up and just to destroy whatever Fanatics, whatever shenanigans my opponent might be pulling up on this battle. And here is my main center line. As you can see in the back there, we have my unit of 23 archers with my battle standard Baron Noble, Tanaz Laynell and the Dawn Patrol. Right in the center, of course, we have my Everwardens, which is my unit of 20 Phoenix Guards. Left of them, of course, is the Sad Flutes, my unit of 20 Swordsmen, with my Archmage Titus Laynell located in that unit. Also on the right-hand side, I got the Everqueen's Rangers. Those are my 15 White Lions. And then right in front on the flanks, on both sides, are my Shadow Walkers. So not my Shadow Walkers, my Shadow Watch, as well as the Word Bearers, which are my 2 units of 5 Illyrian Reavers. And they're there to kind of like run up forward and pull out those Fanatics, because those things close my Elves. I'm only toughness 3. They can be very devastating. And finally, making my right-hand flank, I have the Sunrunner, which is my Tyranic Chariot of Tiranoc. Right next to them, of course, we have Lord Tywin's Retinue, which is my 9 Silver Helms, and also got Lord Tywin located in that unit as well. That's my Prince. He's got the Ogre Blade as well as the Armor of Fortune, which gives him a 5 ward save, and also as well as heavy armor. And of course, right on that hill right there, we got Bolt Through a Hill. Those are my 3 Eagle Claws, my Reigns of Calidor. So that makes the deployment for this battle report. So let's go ahead and talk about Ground the Punch's deployment. On the left-hand flank here, as you can see in the top of that Goblin Watchtower, we got our 2 Doomtimer catapults, the Kamikaze Boys, and right below them, of course, you got the War Boys, which is that huge horde brick of 39 biggins, led by a great shaman who's packing Fencer's Blades. I believe he's also got the Talisman of Endurance, and I think the Crown of Command, so that unit is also kind of stubborn as well, so that's a very deadly unit to take on. And make up most of his center course, he has 3 units of goblins, 2 units of 20, as well as 1 horde of 40. And each of those guys all those guys are packing short bows, and they also have fanatics as well. And make up Brother Grimm's right-hand flank, of course, you have the Howlers, which are those 12 Wolf Riders at the front. Right next to them on the left are the Manglers. That's that unit of Squig Herders, which is actually kind of devastating on that part. Right behind them, of course, you got that huge horde of Black Orcs. Those are the Crimson Killas. Those are 40 Black Orcs, which are pretty devastating. And right next to them, of course, is Ground the Paunch, which is actually kind of a smart idea for my opponent Ground to use this special character, because without him, Goblins usually fear elves, and since they got such horrible leadership save, especially for night goblins, having that ability to make sure that they don't fear my elves because Grom is nearby is a pretty smart idea. And finally, waiting off to the side is his unit of ambushing Forest Goblin Spider Riders. These guys are the Death Creepers, and leading them, of course, is Snag like Rob spins. So those guys will be popping on later on in the battle report. And before we do anything else, we show Vanguard movements here. As you can see in this photo, I send up my 2 units of Illyrian Reavers, just heading straight to those Goblin units. My goal is to get within 8 inches, within 8 inches of those units, and hopefully be able to pull out those Fanatics. That way they're kind of like bogging right there in the middle of the table. My plan is to use my opponent's Fanatics against him and kind of keep him like low-key on his side of the table, so that way I can take my time shooting at him and also weakening him down at the same time. As you can see on the right-hand side, my buddy Ground the Paunch also deploys his Wolf Riders, moves up the full 12 inches, and it gets him kind of like in this kind of interesting like right hook type of formation with his guys. So that pretty much makes the Vanguard movements for this battle report. So with that being said, we go to the top of turn number 1 and we roll for initiative. And unfortunately for me, the Orcs and Goblins get to go first, so this photo is taken directly after the movement phase for turn number 1. And as you can see in this photo, I was actually kind of surprised how my buddy Ground the Paunch kind of moved his army. He was kind of moving him kind of gingerly. The first thing he did is he marched up on his left-hand flank, he marched up his War Boys, heading him as quickly as he possibly can on the left-hand flank. He also moves up Ground the Paunch on the right-hand side just a couple of inches. He keeps his Wolf Riders right where they're at, actually doesn't move them forward at all. And then he also marches forward his unit of Squig Herders, so he marches them the full 8 inches. And then what he does, he fills in the gap that's left behind with his Black Orcs. And he actually keeps his Goblin units right where they're located at, which is actually kind of different. I've never actually really seen that before, where my opponent kind of keeps his Goblins back. I'm assuming he's doing this because he plans on shooting at my Illyrian Reavers in his next shooting phase, which could be actually devastating for my Illyrian Reavers, because that's, 80 shots worth of short bows coming at them, so not really sure what's going on there. So yeah, that pretty much makes it turn number 1 for movement for the Orcs and Goblins. Here's a close-up of the War Boy slowly creeping up my left-hand flank, and I'm kind of concerned about that huge horde brick and figuring out what I'm going to do with that unit. And here's a close-up of the rest of his army. Like I said before, his Goblins are maintained position. They don't move at all. He marches up his Squig Herders as well as his Wolf Riders, and he also moves up Ground the Paunch as well as his Black Orcs. So that pretty much makes the movement phase. So with movement phase over, you go directly to the magic phase. And the worst possible thing happens. He unleashes the Headbutt spell. Now, the Headbutt spell is an interesting spell because it does a target's caster, an enemy unit caster, gives him a strength 5 hit with D3 mortal, 3D3 wounds is when it ends up happening. And my opponent, Ground the Paunch, used that on Rossum Lainel. He's the Dragon Mage on top of the dragon. Managed to not only wound him, but also put 2 wounds on him and kills my Dragon Mage right off the bat. I then roll on the monster reaction table, and my monster gets the ability, which basically means he doesn't move throughout the entire battlefield, and he's going to stay exactly where he's located at. So just like that, I lose a mage right off the bat, and my dragon is totally useless now, which is absolutely terrifying. So did not see that coming. Very, very powerful spell. Very well played from my opponent, actually. And the worst part was I let it go because I was not the spell I was worried about, but I should have been worried. And then my opponent, Ground the Paunch, finally reveals why he kept his goblins back. He decided to use Hand of Gork, which is a magic spell that moves up our units, I believe, 46 inches when it ends up doing. So these guys like rocket real fast right past my Illyrian Reavers and pop out the other end of them, and landing right directly between my Illyrian Reavers as well as my main line of infantry as well. Which is horrible because what that happens is those guys land within exactly 8 inches of my lines, which means at that point he deploys the Fanatics. And as you can see in this photo, all 3 fanatics tear through 2 of my units that go right through my Phoenix Guard as well as to my archers in the back. Managed to kill 7 archers as well as kill 6 of my Phoenix Guard as well. Luckily for me though, I passed my leadership role, so those guys don't panic at all. But almost right off the bat, my unit is basically brought down to I think 2/3 of its normal strength from my archers, and also took out a quarter of the strength of my Phoenix Guard, which is absolutely devastating. And he's kind of like, it's interesting, kind of used that unit of goblins like a homing missile is what he ended up doing. So now I'm really terrified because if my opponent keeps on doing that with his other goblin units, they'll be rocketing past my defenses and just deploying his fanatics wherever he wants to, just creating all kinds of pain for me. And because Ground the Paunch's magic doesn't quit, he also gets off Night Shroud onto his unit of goblins as well. So if I do charge that unit, I do have to take dangerous terrain tests, and if I do try to shoot at that unit, I suffer -1 to my hit. So now I got this huge horde of goblins I gotta deal with as well. During the shooting phase, those sneaky gits opened up with their short bows and managed to kill 2 of my Living Reavers of the Word Bearers, which is absolutely horrible. Which also caused them to panic as well as fail the leadership role. They had to charge flee right through the the looters as well. So they managed to have to take dangerous terrain tests on that one. Lost another Living Reaver in the process of doing that. So that was absolutely horrible. And then Dim Backstabbers, was another unit of 20 goblins, opens up with their longbows, managed to kill 1 of my Living Reavers, and they of course fail their panic test and they run as well. I was rolling horribly. Well, I was rolling high, which is usually pretty good, but not when you want to take leadership tests. So my guys fled 9 inches right through that unit of the looters. Luckily for me though, I passed all my dangerous terrain tests, and now those 4 are on the other side of the board as well. And then the Doom Diver catapults. Oh my god, Dim Kamikaze boys target my unit of Silverhelm Knights. Now, I don't really play against Orcs and Goblins all that often, but one of the things I remembered about the Dim Kamikaze boards, or actually what I forgot about them, was that you don't get any armor saves whatsoever when they fire at you. So because of that, they managed to cause 4 wounds and kill 4 of my guys right off the bat. Almost cuts this unit of Knights in half in terms of their effectiveness. And those guys, luckily for me though, my general was there, so he was able to keep them from fleeing off the table. But that was absolutely devastating. I forgot how powerful Doom Diver catapults are in this game. And to make matters worse, those Night Goblins of the Looters open up with their short bows on my 2 fleeing units of Valyrian Reavers and manage to wipe out both of my fleeing units, which is absolutely terrifying. So right off the bat, I got a quarter of the strength from my major infantry units, I lost half of my Silverhelm Knights, lost my Valyrian Reavers completely, and that was just in shooting it. And I also lost my Dragon Mage, which also rendered my Dragon ineffective, which is absolutely terrible. And that's just turn 1. Turn number 1, man, Ground the Paunch is just bringing it to me. So after that very devastating turn of events for turn number 1, we now start at the bottom of turn number 1 for the High Elves. This is after the movement phase. As you can see, I just move up my guys kind of gingerly. The whole tactic of my plan is to draw my opponents closer to my lines, and that way I can whittle them down with missile fire, even though I'm thinking right now my plan isn't working very well. So as you can see, I don't really do much movement at all. I kind of deploy my infantry units in kind of like a screen formation to kind of defend my archers. I also try to charge initially with my Tyrannoc Chariot, the Sunrunner, as well as my Knights against those Wolf Riders, as well against those Manglas. As you can see, that they also fled as a response as well, which is actually kind of interesting because I really haven't seen Orcs and Goblins do that before. But then again, I haven't seen Orcs and Goblins do a lot of stuff before with Braun the Paunch either, so I don't know what to expect anymore. My opponent is totally shaking things up. Here's a close-up of my infantry units getting ready to take on whatever tends up coming my way. As you can see right there in the middle of the page as well, I originally tried to charge with my Phoenix Guards, but unfortunately for me, my opponent decided to flee with his Ludas. As you can see, they kind of fled away, which is kind of an interesting choice, but then again, I'm also kind of fearful of what my buddy Ground the Paunch is going to do next. And here's a close-up of the Manglas as well as the Howlers fleeing from the charge reactions against my Silverhelm Knights as well against my Tyrannoc Chariot, which is also kind of interesting to see that as well. But then again, you know, what do I know? During the magic phase, I get Soul Quench off onto that unit of War Boys, managed to kill 4 of those guys in the process, which is actually kind of nice. I rolled horribly, however, when I tried to damage these guys while using my when rolling the wounds. So, unfortunately, I did not kill as many guys as I originally hoped, but I'm just like doing horribly with my dice on this game. However, for a consolation prize, I do get a 6 award for my Sword Masters, which is always pretty awesome as well. So with the magic phase over, we go directly to the shooting phase. And in my shooting phase, I rolled absolutely horribly for my bolt throwers. All 3 of my bolt throwers missed. The only guys that actually managed to land any shots were about half of my archers. They only managed to get 2 wounds onto Ground the Paunch, and that was absolutely horrible. I couldn't believe that my rolls are so bad for my bolt throwers. And actually, all the shots I made, only 2 made wounds, and that's after my opponent Ground the Paunch was making regen saves. So that was absolutely terrible for my guys. So yeah, that pretty much rounds up my turn for this one, and things are not looking very good for my army at this point. And that takes us to the top of turn number 2 for the Orcs and Goblins for Animosity, and this is actually kind of interesting. My buddy Ground the Punch actually fails a lot of his Animosity tests on this one. So you can see in this page here, on the very first one is War Boys, they suffer a 1, which means that they automatically have to start shooting at people who is in the nearest unit next to them, so that's kind of interesting. Them Backstabbers, this unit rolled a 6, that means these guys have to actually make an extra move forward and then declare a charge if they can. If they can't charge anybody, they can't move for the rest of the turn because they fail their movement, which is actually kind of interesting. And Sneaky gets roll a 3, which means they get the Squabble special rule, which means this unit doesn't move or shoot or do anything at all because they're too busy fighting each other within this unit, which is actually kind of sad for my opponent. Interesting to see this game mechanic, but at the same time, absolutely devastating though. If I had to roll for Animosity from my army, I'm not sure what I would do. And to make things worse for my friend Ground the Punch, that unit of War Boys get to roll D6 strength, 2d6 strength 3 hits against another friendly unit within the closest unit within them, because it represents these guys with pelting stuff at the other guys before, basically talking smack. Managed to kill 4 of them Backstabbers in the process of doing that, so that was kind of sad. And to make matters worse, the Backstabbers move forward and declare a charge, which they fail, and so they're just kind of stuck where they're located at now, which is actually kind of interesting to see. So that pretty much makes up the Animosity for turn number 2 for the Orcs and Goblins. So here's the photo of the battlefield after the move phase, and as you can see, he pretty much starts moving up his guys kind of gingerly again. He kind of rallies up moves up his forces just a couple of inches at a time, moves up his War Boys again closer to the, his War Boys, his War Boys don't move, I'm sorry about that, they're stuck where they're located at because of the Animosity rules, I'm sorry about that. What he does do, however, is move up Ground the Punch, as well as the Manglas, as well as his Black Orcs as well. Yeah, they kind of move up a couple inches forward. Doesn't really charge anything, but just kind of maintains his position, which is actually kind of interesting. Also, you see there as well, he also rallies a couple of his units. The Looters also rally, so they turn 180 and basically line up to protect the left-hand flank of the Black Orcs. At the same time, his Howlers, which are his 12 Wolf Riders, they also rally and also turn 180 as well. He did try to roll off for his ambushes for Snack Grab Spit as well as the Death Creepers, but unfortunately for him, he failed his rolls on that part. Here's a close-up of my left-hand flank, his left-hand flank rather, with his War Boys just kind of like stuck right there because they're too busy pelting goblins to do any movement whatsoever. Here's a close of his center lines, slowly gaining speed against mine, which is actually kind of terrifying because that's a whole lot of greenskins coming my way, especially that Mangala, that unit of squig herders. I mean, that thing is actually kind of like a guided missile. If I manage to accidentally kill all those herders, that thing will go nuclear options, just eat everything within its path. And here's a close-up of his Howlers, also just turning 180 and getting ready to move again. So with movement phase over, we go directly to the magic phase. And because I am a fool, I decide to ignore my opponent. He decides to roll a headbutt once again. I decide not to dispel that spell because I want to use a couple of my spell dice to try to stop from using Hand of Gork again. It was a huge mistake to do that because, as you can see in this photo, he killed my wizard like it was nobody's business. He killed my Archmage and just kind of like just splattered him. Basically, my Archmage's head just literally exploded and showered his friends and all of his brain and skull and viscera that's at the top of his noggin. It was absolutely horrible. I let that spell go because I thought my friend would not be able to get into range, but he was in perfect amount of range. He actually overshot with the amount of dice that he rolled in the range that he got on that part. Killed my Archmage and rolled a D3, caused three wounds onto my mage. And normally I usually put a talisman of some sort onto my mage to give him a ward save, but I didn't do it this time. So because the only thing he had was a 6 of ward save, I failed my roll, and now my Archmage is dead, which means that my magic phase is pretty much over for the rest of this battle, which is absolutely terrifying. And to make matters worse, he uses Hand of Gork again to move up to Backstabbers. This time he moves within 8 inches of my Swordmasters of Hoth, which means the Fanatics get unleashed. And as you can see in this photo, 2 Fanatics get through and just pretty much mulch about half of my unit Swordmasters at the same time, which is absolutely terrible. I have never seen anything like this before in my entire life, using a Hand of Gork to basically take units of goblins and use them like guided missiles to deploy Fanatics against your opponent. It was absolutely ridiculous. I forgot how powerful those Fanatics can be when you get them within range. And oh my god, I can't believe that actually happened. My buddy Ground the Punch is taking me to task on this battle report. It is absolutely terrifying, some of the stuff that he's doing. It is crazy. So with magic phase over, we go to the shooting phase. And now I understand why my opponent decided to equip all of his goblins with short bows. His short bows, he concentrates fires with his looters as well as them backstabbers and opens fire on my unit of sword masters. Managed to kill everybody except 6 of my guys, and that unit is pretty much neutered. It's pretty much what they actually did that unit at all. I was lucky that these guys didn't fly from the hill because I actually rolled pretty low for my leadership score, but now things are looking horrible for my left-hand flank because now my sword masters are dead, my dragon is stuck, I got nothing to defend that huge wave of war boys coming my way. And because my opponent has an army that just doesn't quit, those Doomdiver catapults kill like I think 4 or 5 of my Silver Elves. Let's put it this way: he killed so many Silver Elves. The only thing I got left is my battles. It was my standard bearer for that unit, as well as my general. And those are the only guys that are left over in that unit. Everybody else has been turned into paste by doom diving kamikaze style goblins. Oh my god! I just can't believe what I'm seeing right now. But then again, I am fighting against the Orcs and Goblin army. Orcs and Goblins armies, when they do well, they just steam right over your opponent. When they do poorly, they just get their butts handed to them. But man, absolutely terrifying this second turn for the Orcs and Goblins. So that being said, since no one's engaged in close combat, we go directly to the bottom turn number 2 for the High Elves. So that takes the bottom turn number 2 for the High Elves. This photo is taken after the move phase, and I'm realizing that my plan of sitting back and trying to lure my opponent towards me is not really working, so I decided to just go for broke and just charge forth everything that I got. So you can see here, as you can see, most of my units charge in. I send my Phoenix Guards into the looters. I also send my Chariot as well as my White Lions into the Squig Herders. I also send my General and my standard bearer for the Silver Helms into ground the paunch and challenge that guy into a duel as well. My goal here is to hopefully get through these units, destroy them, hopefully break them, pursue and overrun and destroy them, and then I can start dealing with these Black Orcs right there, because that's a huge horde brick, and if I can combine all my units and get them engaged with that huge unit of Black Orcs, I might be able to solve that problem and take those guys out as well. Also, if you notice as well, I decided to do like a quick combat reform with my Sword Masters of Hoth and just move them up 5 inches next to the dragon, so that way if those war boys want to charge, they're going to have to get to the dragon instead of my Sword Masters, because that'd be the closest unit for them to get into. So yeah, that's pretty much moved for this one. Here's a close of my left-hand flank, and as you can see, I did a cheesy move. I moved up my 5 inches of my Sword Masters right next to my dragon, and moved them in such a way that the dragon is actually in front of them, like it has a little bit further ahead of them than my Sword Masters, so that way if the War Boys want to charge at my Sword Masters, they won't be able to do it. Their unit's too big, and they won't be able to make that charge, so what they'll have to do is engage the dragon in order to do that. So that's pretty much my only way of saving my unit of Sword Masters. So yeah, it may be cheesy, but you know what? It's in the rules, and it's allowed. And here's a close of my Phoenix Guard charge into Ludas. I have no doubts whatsoever that my Phoenix Guard will be able to take these guys to task, hopefully break these guys and overrun them. That's pretty much what my goal is. If not, then at least I can break those guys and then maintain my position, then like deal with the flank of those Black Orcs. At the same time, I got my White Lions of Trace as well as my Tyranid Chariot smash into that unit of Squig Herders, so hopefully I can take those guys out as well. And also you can see there on the right hand side, I got my General engaging Gorm the Paunch and his special character. So yeah, that pretty much makes a move for this side. During the shooting phase, I rolled horribly during the shooting phase. I concentrated fire with my archers as well as my 3 Eagle Claw Blowthorns. I only managed to kill 3 war boys in the process of doing that. These big guns are really tough, and I just rolled horribly to wound as well as to hit, so my opponent only lose 3 of these guys. Like I said before, there's still 30 plus of these guys, a very, very devastating unit to deal with. And I'm sorry, I made a mistake. My archers didn't shoot at the war boys. I'm sorry, my archers shot at the backstabbers here, and I managed to plink that unit almost down to half strength, which is actually kind of nice. Luckily for my opponent, he managed to make his break test, so he just kind of stayed there. He rolled like I think a 2 or a 3, so those goblins aren't running anywhere either. So that part was kind of nice for him. During the combat phase, I managed to get 3 wounds onto Ground the Paunch. He manages to get 2 wounds onto my General as well. Now, I know a lot of you guys will be saying, wait a minute, you know, Ground the Paunch should be dead. But here's the thing, my friends and I, when we use characters on chariots, we combine the wounds. I know you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to use the highest wound or whatever amongst all parts or whatever nonsense like that, but you know what, this is our game, we're doing house rules. So yeah, my opponent has 3 more wounds higher than my guys, so yeah, it doesn't really work in my advantage, but you know, that's what we do for our rules, and that's how we kind of do things together right there as well. Also, if you notice here on the left hand side too, my White Lions as well as my Chariot, we have to randomize hits in order to see where our attacks will go, whether we hit squigs or whether we hit herders in close combat. Unfortunately for me, the time I decided to roll high for once, I accidentally rolled high and managed to hit all the herders instead. So as you can see there, all 6 herders are dead. Managed to kill 5 cave squigs as well, which means that these cave squigs go wild and they explode. And those guys take a couple of chunks out of everything. I think they killed like 3 black orcs from the Crimson Killers. They managed to do that. Managed to put another wound onto Ground the Paunch as well. Also managed to kill off my Standard Bearer from my Silverhelm Knights. I managed to kill, I think, 2 of my Phoenix Guard in the process of doing that. They also killed a handful of, I think, 2 or 3 of my White Lions. And in this picture, you'll see my Tyrannoc Chariot there. Actually, that thing is actually get killed. I forgot to take a photo of it being killed. But that thing got totally just eaten alive by those squigs as well. So very, very devastating. I just couldn't believe my luck when that actually happened. So terrible, just absolutely terrible. During the combat phase, I managed to kill 9 goblins and my opponent was unable to kill any of my guys. So those Ludas automatically lose. They actually have to auto break on this one. He tries to roll for keep him from breaking, but unfortunately for my opponent, he has to roll Snake Eyes in order to do that. And unfortunately for him, he does not. Those guys, I think, run 6 or 7 inches away. I decided not to overrun because these are goblins, so I'm imagining since they're out of range of their general's leadership that these night goblins will just kind of keep on fleeing and fly off the table. So I test restrain. I'm perfectly successful on that part. I do a quick combat reform and kind of angle in such a way so that way they're facing the left-hand flank of that unit of Crimson Killers as well. And as you can see, pretty much my plan is, like I said before, that Tyrannoc Chariot is not supposed to be there. I forgot to take it off the table for whatever odd reason. But my plan now is to actually charge my White Lions, hopefully hit the front of that unit of Black Orcs, then charge in my Phoenix Guards into the flank as well, and hopefully engage those guys into like kind of like a pincer attack, so that way I can defeat them quickly on that part. So that pretty much runs up the combat phase on this one. And so with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 3 for the Orcs and Goblins. And before any movement takes place, we actually go to turn number 3 for the Orcs and Goblins with Animosity Test. As you can see this one, the War Boys actually failed their Animosity Test, so they're going to get the Eerie Go ability, which means that they have to move up and then charge the closest enemy unit, which actually works out in my favor, because I was hoping that my opponent would charge into my Dragon, and that's exactly what they got to do. The Dragon is actually closer to them than my Swordmasters are, so that means he's got to charge past those guys directly into my Dragon and engage that in close combat as well. So things are looking kind of up for my left-hand flank. And his unit of goblins and backstabbages kind of like chill out where they're located at because they're stuck in a squabble, so now they're too busy fighting each other instead of actually fighting the enemies, so they're just kind of stuck where they're located at. And like I said before, because they have to charge the nearest enemy unit that's closest to them, they charge directly at my Dragon. So even though my Dragon was pretty much useless this entire battle, couldn't go anywhere, I actually kind of lucked out. So now my opponent has to engage my Dragon in close combat whether he wanted to or not because of animosity rules, which are actually kind of cool. Like I said before, Orc and Goblin armies, when they're doing really well, they're rolling hot, they're destroying stuff. When they're doing bad, they get their butts handed to them. But I don't know if that necessarily is the case in this one, because there's a whole lot of biggins and one Dragon. I have a sneaky suspicion those Orcs will be feasting on Dragon blood tonight. And that takes us to turn number 3 for the Orcs and Goblins out of the move phase. First of all, those Fanatics that were behind my archers, you can see there, they rolled off the table edge, so those 3 Fanatics are gone, so there's 3 less Fanatics I got to worry about. However, the other 3 Fanatics, the red-headed ones that came from the backstabbers, they just kind of spread out along the entire main line, which is actually kind of terrifying, that part as well. Also, if you notice as well, my opponent decides to charge in his Howlers and decide to charge directly into the flank of my general, which is actually kind of bad. Luckily for me, though, I am engaged in a challenge, so they will not be able to fight me during the combat phase because I'm still engaged in my challenge with Ground the Paunch, so, you know, small blessings and all that. At the same time, he also managed to rally his Ludas, which was actually a miracle. He rolled like a 2, I think a 3 or 2 or 3, I forgot which one he rolled. And so those guys turn 180 and get ready to march back into it again. Also, if you see here on his Black Orcs, he kind of moves them back and kind of angles them about 2 inches, so that way I can't get any flank charges off, but he'll be able to receive the charge from my 2 units, my White Lions as well as my Phoenix Guard, hitting him head on in that part as well. And to make matters worse, in the very back there, right behind that tower on the right hand side, his Snaggle Grop Spit as well as his Death Creepers make it onto the board. Here's a close-up of my opponent's huge brick of War Boys charging directly into my Dragon because they had to, because they failed their animosity test. And here's a close of them backstabber staying in place because they're too busy fighting each other, and also the Fanatics spreading out all over the place, causing more havoc wherever they're going. Here's a close-up shot of the Ludas actually rallying and turning around to 180 to get ready to get back into the thick of it again, which is actually kind of interesting. And here's a close-up of the main action taking place. You can see those Black Orcs, the Crimson Killers, kind of teetered back about 2 inches, so that way if I do charge them, I have to take them head on, which is unfortunate for me, but at the same time I think my Phoenix Guards and White Lions are up to the challenge. And as you can see there, I have my general who's getting flanked now by the Howlers. Luckily for me though, he's engaged in a challenge right now, so he won't be able to get fought against, which is actually kind of nice. So like I said before, thanks for small blessings on that part. And also, as you can see here is Snag like Rob Spit as well as his Death Creepers moving forward and get ready to put some paint on. During the magic phase, my buddy Ground the Punch had a pretty lackluster magic phase. He managed to get Eerie Go off, which allows him to reroll fail to wounds, so that'd be kind of nice for them because they're fighting a dragon. They need all the help that they can get. But the rest of his spells, I was able to dispel those as well, so that was kind of cool. So with that being said, we go directly to the shooting phase. And as you see in the shooting phase, it's absolutely horrible. Snag like Grobspit used his special weapon, his special throwing weapon, which causes D3 wounds. Managed to atomize one of my bolt throwers around the table because of the poison attacks that he caused. The rest of his forest goblins open up with their poison shots from their short bows. Managed to kill my second bolt thrower as well, which is absolutely terrifying on that part. As for his Doomdiver catapults, one of his guys misfires, so that thing is basically atomized and just gets destroyed. This guy being flung right directly into the tower and causing all kinds of madness that way. And the second Doomdiver catapult just failed to be able to hit anything because he just rolled off way off target with a scatter dice. So with the shooting phase over, we go directly to the combat phase. And in the combat phase, my general managed to get off the last 2 wounds on the Ground the Paunch, which was absolutely amazing. So because of that, he does a quick combat reform to face these Howlers down, which is actually going to be kind of devastating because there's 12 of these guys against my 1 general, so that'll be kind of rough. At the same time, my dragon managed to kill 10 of those of the war boys. Managed to suffer 2 wounds as a payback for that. So that was kind of sad that my dragon got 2 wounds. But he also killed 10 orcs. Now, luckily for me, typically for me, my opponent had to roll really badly for this one because it lost so many guys. But unfortunately for me, though, my buddy Ground the Punch gave the crown of command to his shaman that's leading this unit. So because of that, they're not going anywhere. So they test an unmodified leadership score of 9. So they just kind of stick it out. And as you can see in this photo, they don't go anywhere. They just stay exactly where they're located at because these guys don't run. With that being said, that takes us directly to the bottom of turn number 3 for the High Elves. Which takes us directly to the bottom of turn number 3 for the High Elves. This photo is taken after the move phase. As you can see here, pretty much I just start committing all my troops and just sending them as quick as they possibly can. First of all, I turned my Swordmasters 90 degrees, having them face off against the Warboys. That way I can charge them in during my next turn. At the same time, I also charge in my Phoenix Guards as well as my Everqueen's Rangers, my White Lions, into the unit of Black Orcs, so that we can take those guys on. And of course, I also kind of angle my archers so that they can start putting some long-range fire onto those Spider Riders just kind of popped up here in the last turn. So that pretty much makes the move phase on this one. Here's a close-up of my Swordmasters angling in such a way so that way in the next charge phase I can charge them into these war boys and give some additional support to my dragon. I also take my Dawn Patrol and have them kind of angle in such a way so that way they can aim at their longbows directly at those Spider Riders that popped up on the right-hand side of the table. And here's a close-up of my Phoenix Guards and my Everwardens, as well as my Everqueen's Rangers charging directly into the Dim Crimson Killers, so that way they can take these guys on in close combat as well. Unfortunately for me, both of my wizards are dead, so we skip the magic phase and we go directly to shooting phase. And in the shooting phase, a combined fire between my Bolt Thrower as well as my Dawn Patrol managed to kill 8 of those Spider Riders like it was nobody's business. The only guys that are left are Snag like Grobspit and 3 more of his spiders. Unfortunately for him, though, he breaks his panic check. And just as mysteriously as they appeared, they were gone. During the combat phase, my general managed to kill 3 of the Wolf Riders. Actually pretty cool at that part. They were unable to inflict any wounds on me, and the reason why is because they're all trying to put all their attacks against one lonely target by himself. So luckily for me, they didn't get any wounds off. I did manage to kill 3 of those guys, causing the break. They also fled. They also fled. But instead of me giving chase, I just kind of stayed put. Those guys ran off the edge of the table, and they just kind of like disappeared like that, which is actually pretty cool for me. During the combat phase, I managed to kill 7 of these war boys, which is actually kind of nice as well. They also managed to put, I think, 3 more wounds onto my dragon, so my dragon's out carrying 4 wounds, which is kind of sad, but at the same time, it's to be expected. It's not like I can make that dragon work for me any other way. So, combat ended up being a victory for me, but unfortunately for me, though, these guys are stubborn, so they passed a break test. As you can see, they do a quick combat reform as well and go into a calm formation, so that way they get more raid bonuses against my dragon, which is pretty devastating on that part. So that was the combat here on the left-hand flank. And then combat between my Everwardens, my Everqueen's Rangers, as well as the Crimson Killers was absolutely brutal. I managed to kill, I think, 9 of the Crimson Killers with my Everwardens. They managed to kill 3 of my Phoenix Guard in return. I managed to kill 8 Black Orcs as well. They also managed to kill, I think, 6 of my White Lions as well. So that part was kind of sad too. So luckily for me, though, I won combat by a landslide. So unfortunately, Ground the Punch had to take a break test. He failed that break test against my Phoenix Guards. He turned 180 degrees and ran. I decided to run him down, and I chopped up those guys up like it's nobody's business. So you can see in this table, my Phoenix Guard now kind of deployed ahead of my white lines. Same thing with my general. He's located there in the back as well. So yeah, the combat is going very, very well for myself. And so with that, we start going into my very first blooper in a long while. Like I said before, I have a blooper here. We forgot to take pictures of turn number 4 for the Orcs and Goblins, and to be quite honest, the reason why we forgot to take pictures of this turn is because we went to go to eat some lunch, we came back after lunch, we started playing again. Unfortunately, there was not very much going on for turn number 4 for my opponent. All that he really did is he kind of angled and maneuvered his looters in order to intercept my Phoenix Guards, and so that way he could shoot them as well. He didn't manage to kill any of my Phoenix Guards, unfortunately, because he couldn't get past the ward save. Unfortunate for him too, for his animosity test, his backstabbers basically rolled squabble against. They're just kind of stuck located where they were last time, and of course combat kept on going on with this dragon. I think I managed to kill 1 or 2 more war boys during the combat, and it just ended up being a draw again. So once again, I apologize, not much going on. So with that being said, we go to the bottom of turn number 4 for the High Elves. And voila, turn number 4 for the High Elves after the combat, after the foot movement phase. So you can see in this picture, like I said before, not much really happened. He did angle his looters in such a way so that way he could open up mass fires onto my Phoenix Guard. Unfortunate for him, it also put him in the perfect angle for me to charge my 2 units of High Elves into him. So I send my White Lions as well as my Phoenix Guards. He decides to stand and react, and as also shoot back as a stand reaction. We're going to take a photo of that here in a second. At the same time, his dim backstabbers are still kind of stuck where they're located at as well. They're stuck in a squabble, like I said before, from the last time. And also, you got his war boys still engaged with my dragon. Here's a close-up of my charge of my White Lions, as well as my Phoenix Guards charging directly into the looters. And like I said before, the looters decided to stand and shoot as a charge reaction, which ended up being pretty devastating for me. As you can see in this photo, he managed to kill 3 of my Ever Wardens for my Phoenix Guards, which is kind of sad, but he ends up killing 2 of my White Lions, and that was enough to cause my unit to break. Unfortunately for me, I am way out of range of my Battle Standard Bearer, so my White Lions don't get a chance to re-roll again, but because they're below 25%, I would need Snake Eyes for those guys to stay put. So as you can see there, they're just fleeing for the hills as well, which is okay because, you know, they did a pretty good job. They took on the Black Orcs, managed to wipe out the Crimson Killers. Not much I can really ask from them beyond that, and besides, I think my Phoenix Guard got this combat with the looters as well. So with that being said, we go directly to the shooting phase. In the shooting phase, combined fire from my archers of the Dawn Patrol as well as my last Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower from my Reigns of Calidor managed to finish off the rest of them backstabbers. We managed to atomize those guys off the table, which is actually pretty cool. So with shooting over, we go directly to the combat phase. And in the combat phase, combat between my Phoenix Guard of the Ever Wardens versus the Ludas actually ended up being my favor. I killed 9 goblins when it was all said and done, and unfortunately my opponent was unable to kill any of my guys. These guys have to break, and they have to roll Snake Eyes in order to make it, but unfortunately for my opponent, he fails. I decided not to pursue because they're so close to the table edge, it's not really going to matter for me to go after them. And as you can see in this photo, I decided to restrain instead. His looters were off the table, another victory for my guys, and then take a combat reform, turn 180 to start moving up to the rest of the board in order to help out my dragon. So during the combat phase, the fight between my dragon and my swordmasters against the unit of war boys, my dragon managed to kill 5 orcs before he ended up being killed. At the same time, my swordmasters of Hoeth managed to kill 5 orcs at the same time. They did not manage to kill any of my guys as well, so because of that I win combat, they break and flee. I run them down with my Swordmasters of Hoeth, and as you can see where that little goblin is there, we actually rolled for it. I really anticipated if I actually took damage from that goblin would have destroyed my Swordmasters of Hoeth. However, we were just too tired to actually pick those models off the table, so those guys are technically dead. I just want to let you guys know that ahead of time. So in case you're wondering how come the angle looks weird, those guys are dead. That's why I put them off to the side, to represent the fact that those guys got chopped up by the Fanatic as they ran through it. And that takes directly to the end of the game. As you can see, not very much is left on the table. I got a fleeing unit of White Lions and destroyed unit of Swordmasters. I got a half unit of Phoenix Guard left, as well as my half unit of my Bowman. I got my General, as well as my Bolt Thrower, and that is all that I really have. And this game was absolutely brutal and nerve-wracking. It was absolutely surprising some of the tactics of my opponent around the paunch brought to this battlefield. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to the after action report because this battle report is now officially over.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for the After Action Report. This is the part of the battle report we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do battle. This is the After Action Report for Warhammer the Golden Age Battle Report number 30. Ended up being a victory for yours truly. When I say victory, I mean just barely a victory. Alright, I barely won this one. So let's go and talk about some of the losses that took place. First of all, Ground the Paunch. He lost Ground the Paunch's general, Niblet his battle standard bearer. He lost his wizard, Rugged the Stunty Flare, as well as a shrinking Shroomhead. He lost Snag like Grobspit, the Ludas, the Backstabber, those Sneaky Gits, which was 3 units of goblins. He lost the Howlers as well as the Death Creepers, the War Boys, the Manglas, and the Bone Breakers. He lost the Crimson Killers as well as the Kamikaze Boys. So pretty much his entire army. For me, I lost my 2 wizards, Titus Lainel and Ross Lainel. I lost my Dragon Pyrite as well as Prince Tywin's Retinue, which is my Silver Helms. I lost the Word Bearers and the Shadow Watch, which are my 2 units of Illyrian Reavers. My Sunrunner, which is my Chariot, as well as the Sad Flute, which is my Sword Masters. So first of all, this game was extremely tough. I saw a lot of things being done on this board, on this battlefield I'd never seen before out of Orcs and Goblin army. My buddy Ground the Paunch brought some interesting new tactics to this game. Case in point, using the Hand of Gork spell to basically give his goblins like a homing missile strike ability to unleash his fanatics onto units of his choice. He did that to me twice and showed you how very powerful and interesting that kind of tactic really was. And just like before, this army actually had a very powerful magic phase as well as a shooting phase, which you don't really see that often in an Orcs and Goblin army. Most of the time, Orcs and Goblin armies are designed to just charge at you as quickly as possible and smash your face in, because that's what they do really well at. My buddy Ground the Paunch brought some interesting things I never saw before. Same thing with using his loss of his movement shenanigans as well. Him baiting my forces, fleeing as a charge reaction, then recharging and countercharging. I saw a lot of movement with this army that I usually don't see in Orcs and Goblins army, so it's kind of nice seeing this new breath of fresh air that my buddy Ground the Paunch is bringing to this game. It's kind of neat kind of seeing that. Once again, that spell, Edbutt, is extremely dangerous for magic users. That thing is a homing missile to kill wizards, and I lost, for example, just how devastating it was, I lost both my wizards in the first 2 turns of the game. So for about a third of the game, 2/3 of the game, I had no magic whatsoever. So it was very, very powerful in this part. In the end, what actually won me the game was poor leadership is actually what won me this game. Now, Ground the Paunch is an interesting special character because he gives his goblin units the ability not to have to roll for fear tests whenever he's around. But unfortunately for him, once Ground the Paunch died, both his battle standard bearer as well as his general was gone. So because of that, the very low leadership of all these units was actually starting to tell, and because of that, they started evaporating left and right because of all the low leadership they were having. So this is kind of like a perfect idea of how you have skill and discipline over brawn. And it kind of shows you how well that kind of works out as well, because once again, most of my opponent's armies units were fleeing is what ended up allowing me to win this one. In the end, this is a very fun game. It was extremely challenging, and I also like the fact how Ground the Paunch brought some really interesting tactics to this, which is kind of neat because he's kind of a newbie in our gaming group and he's actually doing some pretty unconventional things. It's actually kind of cool to see him do some of that, so it's pretty awesome. Once again, looking forward to a rematch against my friend. Always love playing against this guy. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is always appreciated, and check out our Instagram page as well as Facebook and Google Plus for all the latest and greatest information about what we're doing for our hobby. That's going to wrap it up for this one, you guys. Remember, we alternate every Sunday between the 9th Age as well as Age of Sigmar for battle reports, and every Thursday between Warhammer the 8th Edition Fantasy battle reports as well as Necromunda. You guys stay classy. We'll see you guys in the next one. Catch you on the flip side.